And good morning, good afternoon, good evening. How's everybody today out there in the Twitterverse? Maybe not Twitterverse, verse as well. How's everybody doing? I hope everybody's doing good. Have a good start today. My day started pretty well. Got Fae Dragon out to the, excuse me, welcome to the channel. Luke, welcome to the Dragon Den. Hey Shenanigans 3D, how you doing? Will you? Hopefully you can hear me good, right? Is the audio better today? Because the last stream, the audio was sounding really low. I think there was one of my connections in my mic wire was, so yeah, I got that squared away. Stream. But anyhow, I had a little bit of late evening helping Miss Dragon finish packing. Got up early this morning, got her out to the airport, got back, a little bit of nap before the stream, got my coffee, and we are ready to go. So today, well, actually, over the last couple of days, we did get some new parts in for the build. Oh, okay. Not a problem. You're at work. Sounds good. Well, thanks for joining in from work shenanigans. Hopefully, you're able to watch the stream without having to do it on the download. Thank you for sharing your day at work with me. But we did have a few things come in over this last week. So our LDO motor kit arrived. So this is the 2.4 motor kit. So it's got 6 motors in it. We've got 7 motors actually. So we got the 4 motors for the Z-axis, which are 1.8 motors. We have 2 motors for the A and B, or the X and Y would normally be what it is. And those are 0.9 motors. And then we also have the small pancake motor down here at the bottom for our stalk burner extruder. So we did get our motors in, so we will be able to continue to build, and we should be able to make a lot of quick progress. The other thing we got in today from our folks over at Tensor 3D, who's helping to offset the cost and help sponsor the stream, are some purple anodized DIN rails. We'll swap out the DIN rails that I put in temporarily on the last stream with these. These things, I mean, they're amazing. They're extremely lightweight, and the anodizing on them is beautiful. Just don't know. Hopefully that comes out really. So they do have several colors in these DIN rails. They're all pre-cut, pre-sized. They've got purple, blue, red, green, orange, and the standard. It's just standard anodized aluminum. So that's really good. Really helps you add a little bit of flair to your builds. And also with the motors, it did come with these little clips. And you've got like Z0123, A, B, and E, so you're able to identify all of your motor cable as you put them into the board. So that'll be a nice touch. So where we left off on the last stream, go ahead and get a couple things, get it all to the side. They grab the first and need to build motors, we had our frame and we had most of the Z motor mounts put in place. Tried to raise the camera up some so we get a little bit better angle. We can see, try and see most of the printer. But we do have our idler brackets in for our Z belts. We did have the deck panel in, and we've got our 4 feet with the geared pulleys in them ready to go. So all we need to do is mount our motors to the motor mounts. We can go ahead and get these installed on each of the bracket or on the Z pulleys here. So we just need to install them, make sure that the belts are lined up. So with that, stick this over just a tiny bit, and we'll start by just swapping our den rails out for our new colorful ones, because that'll be a quick and easy fix here while we're waiting for other people to come in this morning. So with these, the slits in the rail are a little bit thinner. So what I'm going to do is swap out the M5s, M3s. We should have plenty of extras, so it's not going to matter too much. That's out. And if it does, I have plenty of peanuts that I can swap. How are you doing this morning, shenanigans, other than being at work? Once again, I'm just swapping out the den rails, and the slots for the den rails are a lot thinner than the other standard den rail I had. So I'm just having to swap over to some M3 hardware, which is the M5 hardware. Shouldn't be a problem. Finish unloading your tank. Okay. So you drive some type of a tanker truck then? 4 hour drive back home. Well, that stinks. Okay, so we've got our rails swapped out. So we got the nice pretty purple in here that goes with everything else. And we've got our motors. Now, the motors in the package. There's two different types. You'll get some motors that have the full 6-pin connector on them. And then you'll have a couple motors that'll have, you know, the soldered on wires come out to a DuPont connector. There's two of these and they're 0.9. That's where these are the AB motors. And your other standard motors, these are the 1.8s, and these will be used for the Z-axis. Nice. And I'm going to pull up our directions here. Switch screens real fast. So you can see them along with. Sorry about that. So what we're going to do is set our pulleys. And we do have a nice little jig that will help us in setting those pulleys. So have our jig, have our motor, my motor pulleys, and our Loctite stick. So the first thing I'm going to do is just pull out the grub screw and put a little bit of Loctite. Need a whole lot, just a tiny bit. Still want any of your pulleys to start free spinning. Take much stuff. Okay, and the way these pulleys go is the fin flange goes towards the face of the motor. So we'll just set this on here. So we can slide it still. And then we'll use our jig. And we've got different tabs on our jig. So we have an A side, B side, and then a Z side. So we're going to look at our jig, set that on there. Set our pulley to the right depth based on the jig. Set our pulley to the right depth based on the jig. And once we have that in place, let's go ahead and tighten down on the flat face first. Move just a little bit so check and make sure that that's still good. I'm going to drop it down just a tip. Great. Got the one tightened up. Let's tighten the other side up. One motor down. I'll just go through and put the pulleys on all the other motors. Then we'll get those installed. Hey, Everything Plus Ultra, how are you doing today? Thank you for joining in. We're just working away over here. I tried to adjust the camera a little bit to give it a little bit more height, especially since we're going to be working up here a little bit to start with. So you may see here, one of the things that we did was we swapped out our standard silver den rails for some purple anodized aluminum ones. Once I get the motors on, I'll flip it up a little bit so that you can see it. So we got those put on. The slots down in the channel are a little bit narrower than on the standard den rail I had. So I switched from M5 screws over to M3s, and these are button heads that I put in here. I don't think it'll be an issue having button heads in there because nothing drops down in that channel. So if I need to, I can swap those out with some M3 button heads that I do have. And right now what we're going through and doing is just setting our pulleys on our Z motors, which came in over the week. They came in on Thursday. So standard thing, pull the grub screws, add a tiny bit of some thread locker. Once again, I found the paste thread locker I keep seeing Steve Bilge use, and I like that a lot better than the liquid blue thread locker. It's just easier to work with. You don't have to worry about having like a little small dish for a thread locker or something that you can knock over or drop things in. But just get these started. Set them down on the shaft. And once again, the thin edge of the pulley, so it's going in that orientation, upside down, where the thick edge is at the top with your set screws. Then you'll have a pulley guide. You get that set up on there. So your pulley lines up. Lock it against the flat. And choose our pulley guide to make sure that our pulley will line up with the belts. Lock it against the flat and lock the other one. Set that aside. Work on the next one. You doing good this morning then, Everything Plus Ultra? So what side of the I was gonna say which coast do you live on or where do you live in the States, but that's an assumption that you live in the States. Should pretty much kind of say, like what part of the country or your country do you live in and what time zone are you? Trying to gauge how this time slot works. I know people trickle in slowly, so I think if I push it back like an hour, I'll get more people off the bat than starting so early. I also try and stream a little bit earlier so I don't impact spending some time with my wife later on in the day. You can find the flat, put your pulley on, use our guide to set the height of the pulley. So it's on to the pulley. It's the flat. You live in Pennsylvania, but currently in New York. Okay. At least that's still East Coast, right? Because Pennsylvania is Pennsylvania still Eastern time zone, or does that switch over to Central? This would help if I go to some of my states a little bit better too. Eastern? Okay. That's a little bit better. At least you're not driving and swapping time zones in the process. Always makes it. I'm working. I know we're going to get this build done, and I have another build that I'm trying to get done for Murph. And I will take a couple of printers to Murph with me, and along with Eel Diesel. So we're going to take a couple of printers. We're going to have at least one of the new Death Racers, which if you follow the Death Racers and you like those little builds, or you're going to be going to Murph, there was an announcement, and they should be dropping the new files, or at least, yeah, they should have the new files dropped today. I know Sam Prentice is going to have a YouTube video out today, so it should have the link to the files for the next couple of minutes. Signed up. Side. So got those installed. Okay. Then we will install with M3x8 screws, actual mounting brackets. There's a certain way when you mount this bracket, you want the wires coming out on the skinny vertical edge. Up. Restarted. Trying to at least get opposite corners going first. Once I get those, then everything else. Definitely building one for Earth next year. Okay. So you're not going to any of the shows this year, or you're just not going to build a Death Racer? Remember, this way. So once again, the long edge is the side where your wires come out. That way your wires will always be coming out facing in on the print. Okay. I should definitely see you at the show because I'm definitely, like I said, we're going to Murph and I'm going to set up a table at Murph with a couple of the printers and we'll have at least a death racer and potentially a drag racer this year at Murph. And then we'll fix or repair as needed and take to Earth as well. I did get approved for a table at Earth, so I will have a table at each. Now I don't have like fancy banners and all that good stuff yet. It's just going to be me and Evil Diesel sitting there with printers and stuff to show off. Eventually down the road, I'll get some other stuff, but right now, just say I'm still starting out, trying to build a following and just enjoying doing builds and stuff like that, meeting people. Skin on skinny edge. Here's your mark. Your your cable. Yeah, your cable or your wire inputs. Yeah, I went to Murph the first time 2 years ago, and it was kind of small because COVID was still going on. Um, I say kind of small. There were still several hundred people there. Um, and I went to Murph again last year, and then this year when Rocky Mountain kicked off, I was like, okay, I've got family there. I need to go and visit. I need to check this out. And then when um, I was talking to my buddy, he's we were stationed together in Germany. He lives about 10 minutes away, and he's like, well, I've got family in Bel Air. We need to go to Earth as well. And I'm like, sounds good to me. Let's go. And so I'm hitting all three shows this year. And then next year, my wife had already made the comment of, well, if you go out there next year, because I was thinking, well, maybe I can drive out there next year. So we already got this step done, and this is where we're at. So we need to get 2 more M5 slide-in nuts. Anyhow, I was talking to my wife, and she suggested, well, if you don't want to drive, she goes, I'll drive and take the stuff out there, and you can just fly in. And the reason I have to worry about things like that is because of my asthma and just being up at altitude. It's kind of iffy. So I've realized that if I go out there for like a full week, chances are I'm going to get sick and wind up in the hospital. Where if I fly in and just kind of do I'll say a hit and run type visit like I did over 4 days, it still impacts my breathing and stuff, but I was able to do it without any chance of being put in the hospital, which was nice. So that's going to be the plan going into this next year is she will most likely drive the car out with a bunch of things and then I'll fly out. And of course, her mother lives there. Oldest son lives out in Colorado Springs. So there's definitely okay. So I got the rolling nuts in place. I'm going to go ahead and grab some M5 screws and get them up here for us. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to try and line these up as best I can. And then we got to make sure that we get the belt on there. Set it down. Screw holes lined up. We're going to put one M5 bolt on the outside and just get it started. And then on the inside, we'll take our little cam clip here and we're going to stick that in. Get it lined up with a hole. Put our next M5 by 10 screw in and get that started. Just lined up, take it off. And then what we're going to do is we're going to push this lever closed. And as we do that, this motor is going to move out because this acts as a camshaft lever. Just want to make sure that the belts stay lined up on both the large pulley and the smaller pulley. Flip that over. And now we can go ahead and tighten these down. So I'm going to apply a little bit of pressure on the back side of the motor, pushing it that way as well. I'm going to tighten that rear joint. I'm going to tighten the front edge. I'm making sure that it's flush. And that's what gives us our nice tight pulley. And I'm just going to rotate the pulley and make sure that the belt's not rubbing. Looks like it's rubbing just a little bit on this front face. So loosen the pulley just a hair. We'll pull it out just a tad bit. Let the belt get a little bit more room so it's not right up against the edge of the pulley. Tighten it back down. And there you have it. You've got your first Z motor attached. We're going to do the same thing over on this side. And I'm going to need to rotate this a little bit. Same thing, I'm going to just kind of set this there and line up my 5 T-nuts. Good. Sure to get my belt looped onto the pulley. We'll take another M5 by 10 on the, say on the inside that's lined up with that thin upper lever arm. We're just going to get that started until we feel it. Then we're going to grab another one of our cam pieces. Slide that in. There in 5x10 in there. We're going to tighten it just so we feel it grab that T-nut. Don't tighten it all the way, and then we're going to push this lever closed, which is going to cause this whole Z-motor piece to pull out and tension with this pulley. Make sure it's nice and it's all the way closed and it's nice and flush with your finger. And then we're going to tighten the inside first, and then the inside, then the outside. And we're going to double check and make sure that as we spin the pulley, belt rides on the pulley. It doesn't rub up against any side. And that's good. Now we're just going to rotate around and just keep going one at a time. Yeah, Timor, look at and a CPAP machine. I do wear a CPAP. I've been wearing one for well over a decade now. And it does help a lot as far as breathing at night. But in my case, like what happens is I will get up at altitude, and over a couple of days, my overall blood oxygenation levels will drop, and I will go into an asthma attack. And as I cough with the asthma attack, it will actually keep cinching my chest. And I'll basically go into respiratory distress and get hospitalized. And in fact, the last time it triggered my heart as well, and I wound up going in for what appeared to be a heart attack. And that's when my wife was like, "Nope, we're done. We're out of here." Hey, Daddy Wes, good morning. How are you doing, my friend? Make sure we get the one that will cam and lever over in the right direction. Now slide that in this piece here. Get it all lined up. Drop another in 5x10 nut or bolt in there. Stand up a bit and make sure that we've caught on to the T-nut underneath. Lever it closed. You'll see the motor move to the side and put tension on the belt. And I'm just going to hold my finger here so it's lined up against the rail. Tighten one down, then tighten the other down. Then we're going to look right over it and check the rotation of the belt and make sure it's not rubbing. Seems a lot tighter than before, or the other two. You know. Yeah, I think the belt itself was just out of place and a little off the larger pulley. Got that squared away. And belt looks like it's lined up. Yep, it's Saturday. Daddy Wazzy's watching soccer. Who's playing today, Daddy Wazzy? Hey, Chewy, how's it going? So once again, we're going to take our motor. I'm just going to put this all the way in and line up my T-nuts. Loop that belt around the motor. Set it down there and get the M5 closest to the center of the printer. Just going to get that started. Try to. A little bit. Take our last cam piece. Actually, make sure that that's centered. Do this. Put our last cam piece in. Lined up. And then our final M5 by 10 screw. Down in there and feel it bite the T-nut underneath. Hey, Rob, eh? And then we're going to push that lever over, which is going to tension the motor. Once again, I'm going to put my finger in the front so it doesn't rotate around. Stays nice and parallel. And tighten things down. So that's the nice thing is if you ever need to work on this, it's literally a matter of loosening the screws, pulling the lever, then doing the screws, and then the whole belt can come off. And I'm just going to rotate this around and make sure that my belt's tracking and it's not rubbing up against the pulley. And we're good. So we've now got our 4 motors. All of our plugs are facing inside. This is the back of the printer. So I will be switching this around, but I do want to show you that our new purple anodized DIN rails are installed as well. Those came in this week. And folks, I cannot stress enough. Oh, we're going to flip this back over. Almost forgot the next step, which is installing our feet. So these also came in for this last week. And let me see what these call. The B-stock frame arrives today. Frank and Merck in a couple of weeks. Awesome, Timor. I want to show you guys something here in a short bit. But yeah, your B-stock frame, so far, like I said, these B-stock frames have been really nice. I put it all together on the bench. I took it out to the kitchen counter, kind of loosened all the joints up and just let it settle on that nice solid stone surface. Tightened everything back up. And nothing was, you did the 4 corners, nothing was rattling, and checked all the measurements, and everything was within a 1/16 of an inch or less, corner to corner. So these were cut really well. Like I said, the 2 downsides to these, the channel depth is a little bit deeper, so your rolling spring-loaded T-nuts don't have enough room to actually hold themselves tight, but they still work. As soon as you put the screws in them, they do tighten up very well, as you can see. And then the other thing is the blind joint holes. So the holes in the ends of the extrusion that you have to tap. Well, you don't have to tap. They are tapped. They're tapped for M6 because these holes in these extrusions had to have been 5mm holes to start with, which meant you can't tap them for a 5mm if they start off. One thing that I will also say is as you're moving this printer around, make sure that your rubber stops stay in. The last thing you want is to flip this over and out goes a carriage, and now you're chasing small little balls everywhere. So how are you doing this morning, Rob Inc? Hope you're doing well. That, and now we need M5 by 16. Yeah, these frames have turned out to be really, really nice frames. The I've still got the Trident frame behind me sitting on the shelf. That is going to be built. I will say I ordered a bunch of parts over the last day or two. So I do have parts coming in. Just not sitting flat. That does not appear to be sitting flat. What it is the washer. It's got a metal washer in it, and it's out of its groove. So I need to see if I can't get that pressed in, get it properly seated. But yes, I have gone and procured a stash of parts that will be used for a Trident build. And I will have to work on this one a bit later because, like I said, that washer is just not seated in there right. Um, feels like it's not crap. You have to take that one off and see if we lost the M5 nut in it. Brad? Working on your honeycomb wall. Okay, nice. And that's basically like the like a pegboard wall, correct? Yeah, that dropped all the way through. I lost an M5 nut over here. So I have to do a little bit of disassembly. I think this is the motor that spent a little. So that explains why it was spinning. A nut key. Hey, that spins a lot easier when there's not an M5 nut sitting on the belt. You know what? We're just going to do this. So, should have to get it. Okay, so you tried that Elegoo 10 pack. Now, is that still on sale or is that sale done with? Because I was interested in looking into that. And I want to say I had gotten a package. I had won some Elegoo filament, and I gave like the whole box to Evil Diesel just because I had way too much filament here at the house at the time. And I don't think he had any problem with it either. And it was, I think, like five colors. Black was probably one of them. Yep, still on sale. Awesome. Nice, nice, nice. Okay, so got that there. I'm going to stick this just off to the side. And we'll flip this over. And we got feetsies now. Okay. This is the front facing you all. This is the back facing away. Yeah, definitely shenanigans. Look into this. Look into those sales when you can find them. The idlers holding off on doing the bed just for now. We had our gantry pretty much put together. We were waiting on the motors before we hung it. So let's grab our gantry motors. Actually, before we do that, let me set this on the ground. Gantry. First, we can motors. So, on our motors, we're going to do, yeah, but a 2-month lead time is somewhat understandable because it's coming from overseas. And it's always going to be easier to ship it via boat than it is to ship it via air. We'll need 2 of our pulleys. I'm going to do the same thing. We'll just go ahead and pull the set screws. Some lock point on it, and that's one of the free. Set screw, black table. It is a 2. Yeah, and it's the same thing with like Big Tree Tech. I bought a couple of their new pie boards, and I bought it off the Big Tree Tech site because it's like $10 cheaper than buying it on Amazon. But when you buy it off of Amazon, it's here in a couple of days. You buy it off of their website, and it's like several weeks for shipping. Like I ordered it a little over a week ago, and I just now got a shipping notification where it's shipped from China. So it'll leave China and it'll come over to the U.S. and they've already issued a U.S. Postal Service. Um, these go the opposite way, so the thick portions are down on this, and one way and one the other. So do a motor first. Somewhat tight before I start trying to use the J. Once again, what we're trying to do is we've got our jig, set our jig on the face, and we line up our piece. That gives us our set for done. Tighten the first one against the flat, the other one against the round edge. Watch yourself. Don't take chunks of skin. Even cheaper from AliExpress. That's a part of the site, USA, but there's only a few things. Yeah, exactly. Um, and that's where I say, you may pay a little bit more going through Amazon. You need something quicker. You're better off going through Amazon or local US reseller that has the parts in stock. That's what I'll normally try and do is like talk to KB3D because I'm over on the East Coast. So it's Fabrico and KB3D are over here. Then you got like DFH and Xyltech and a couple of others that are like in Texas. And then you've got like West 3D and a couple others that are over on the West Coast. So I always try and go East Coast first just because it's closer and I know I can get it here quicker without having to pay extra shipping charges to do it. And the next one, this one goes over on this side because it's got the notch in it. And other side, 3x30. This goes the other way with the lip down. Dash T lower. Snug it up. And then we'll use our puller gauge on the B side. Set the height of that one. Let it go like that. And make sure it's good and tight. Other side. Always good double and triple check your alignments. And knowing if you're off by just a tad, it's okay. You can adjust these a little bit later. Now we need to get these put in with some M3x20 bolts. 3 on each side. And you may hear the printer over there still chugging away because we've got 4 parts printing this printer. These are the quote unquote non-functional parts that weren't printed by the PIP program. And what I'm going to do is just set these up on a couple of filament boxes. And that'll let me get the motors in from the back side. And you want to orientate these so that the cables are towards the inside of the printer. And 3x30s. And 3x30. But yeah, and like I said, it all depends on what you need, when you need it, on how fast you need things. Well, it's so expensive because of all the bits that you don't print. Probably one of the most economical 3D printers I've put together recently has been the Rook. You still have the same number of motors and stuff like that, but the printer itself was mostly printed. So that's probably has been one of the most economical printers I built. try this again with some longer screws. Trying to figure out why the screws aren't going in. It helps if you use the right size driver for the right size screw. Otherwise, you just sit there and spin inside the head of the screw. The bugaboo as well. The bugaboo, you still needed the extrusions, which is going to add cost. But correct. So for a Voron 2.4 or a Trident, it's going to be very expensive. Even the 0102 is going to be pretty expensive. The look for the Cyborg kits, SIBOOR on AliExpress. The people that I've seen that have built Cyborg kits, they seem to be a pretty decent, I'll say, parts quality and a decent amount cheaper. Not saying that I recommend them because I've never built one. It's just more of the people that I've seen that have built them, like Greg's Maker Corner has built one of their B0 kits, and it seemed like it turned out pretty good. Didn't have too many issues with it. And I believe the price of those Cyborg kits also includes printed parts. Okay. So we've got our motors in, and we are going to need to check. So we're going to look at the front, and on the left side, we've got our pulley on the bottom, double stack, and the pulley in the back is at the bottom. So double stack on the outside, bottom, pulley up here. And this is where I was getting confused, where it keeps saying check your work, is because it's having you look at it from the back, not from the front. Same thing over on the orientation toward the side. There we go. So this is this side. So we've got the two in the back, pulleys up at the top, and our other bearing is at the top. This is how it would sit in the printer. Okay. So now we've got our motors installed. We assembled our X gantry. Got our new channel. Motors are still facing down as in that picture. We've installed these. Pieces of X gantry over there. And here we go. Now it's where we have it flipped over. Okay. Flipped over with the linear rails on the top. Put this over. All I'm going to do is move my carriages forward, bump stops, so that I can install this. And because you need to take this piece here and kind of go down. Set it on there. And these take M3 by 16 socket head cap screw. Hey, how's it going, Solar 3DP? Yeah, that's right. My bot just, yeah, he just completed his cyborg kit. That is true. I had to think about that. He had just completed his cyborg kit. And like I said, they have printed parts. Now I'm not sure if the printed parts were sent to them or if they're truly included in the kit price. I know I looked, but I haven't really looked at it. Stateside, there is, if you go to VoronKits.com, you can also get kits from them. And they're stateside, so you don't have to worry about the shipping. And I believe they may be a little bit better quality. So this is a key point. On this side, there's 4. On this side, you only do the 2 closest to the motors because you will be putting another piece on here. Just get these lined up. Snugging them down. You don't want to crank these down like the Dublazes because you can, well, right below the where the bolts go in is where your races are for your actual rail for your carriage. So if you crank down really hard on that, you can actually deform the inner race of the bearings and cause yourself issues with your linear rails. Okay, so with that, we are getting close to hanging the gantry. And belting our Z-axis. So as you can see here, we're going to be working with the Z belts, the Z joints, the idlers, and the Z drives. All of that comes up and goes through the kit. Start by prepping some things. I am not using a Hall effect sensor, so I won't be working with those pieces. Just going to get a couple of things out here now. Box. Okay, so we're going to start working with our Z bearing blocks. And three of them are the same, and then one of them has the little indent for it to put a magnet if you're going to use a Hall effect in stop. We are not. So what I'm going to look at is you've got the 3 holes on the top, and on the other side you've got the 2 holes in what looks like 5 bolt. That's where we're going to put our M5 nut at. Yeah, like I said, I think the printed parts, like I said, I'm not sure if they're included in the base price of the kit or if they're the optional add-on, but always good to, always good to get the parts as well if they are quality parts. So if they are quality parts. And from what I saw, the parts were good, but I'm trying to remember, I think they were ABS Plus, which people are saying, may not be the best thing for enclosed printers now. I don't know. Okay, so we've got those 4 preloaded. And now what you're going to see is on this side, we've got an M5 and an M3 hole on each side. And we're also going to start putting in our belts. Now, I went ahead off stream and measured out a belt. I measured out a little more than 1,100 millimeters. And then what I did was I grabbed one, I grabbed the rest of the belt. And what I did was the first side that I measured and cut, I put that so that the teeth line up, and the one that I cut is on the top, and its tooth is up. It's the first one up. So then you just press it between your fingers to keep the teeth going, and you pull through, and you'll find the length for the next section of belt. And the nice thing is because the top one is 1 tooth that way, you'll have a gap right here, and you cut. Now you've got 2 belts that are equal length, and you do that for the other 2 belts. So now I have 4 belts that should be teeth count wise the exact same length. Okay. And so what we're going to do is we're going to take these belts, and these are the 9mm belts. Make sure you're cutting the right belts. And we're going to set these teeth right down in these grooves. Okay. So you'll set the teeth right down in the grooves and make sure that it's right at the end. Be a little bit more difficult on the Z motors because the Z motors. Right, we get those lined up. Then we're going to take one of our caps, and you'll notice there's a slight indent on one side, and it's flat on the other side. So that slight indent is going to be what goes over this belt and pushes it into those grooves. And then we're going to put one of our blocks with the 5mm bolt facing down for the 5mm nut facing down. So I need an M5 by 30s. M5 by 30 button head screws and M3 by 30 socket head screws. We got 3 of those, so hopefully The other thing I need to be cognizant of is we need to make sure that our M5 and M3 roll-in T-nuts are down here. Had a couple of them fly out on me earlier, so I'm just going to double check. And neither one of them are in there, so I got to set those in there. And move them down into alignment with the holes. Double check the manual and just make sure that I sorry about that. Sorry about the crazy fast scrolling, folks. Inside, which we've got. Edges, those on the bottom side were M5 T-nuts, front and back. Top side were M3s on the inside and M5s on the outside. Oh, and you know what? I know why it's hidden. So we've got a screw in one, which is what it tells us to do. I think it might be hitting that because I'm not able to get it to line up all the way. Interesting. So definitely getting down and hitting this with this end. So give me 1 second. See, I think I've got a different type of T-nut. One is those, which would allow me to Really don't want to use like a hammerhead T-nut on any of these, but maybe where I have to go. Either that or potentially take the screws and move them back one so that they're not right at the end, even though it looks like in the drawing they're saying put them right at the end, meaning the first screw holes. Question would be is would I be able to even, I guess I should be able to push those deeper using one of my drivers. Get the improve my 8 out. Driver and move the on the back. Put it up and screw it. So now that will let me sink this one back in there with an M3 further in. M3, 5, 5 up. The 3 will now line up, and yeah, it just bleeds into the hole. So got one there. We will pour it in the manual where we're at. Built up off the ground so I don't kill myself. I'm sorry, did I apologize, my friend. Thank you so much, Solar. Yeah, so I've got the manual here, and I'll actually flip over this screen, and you'll see a little bit more about what I'm working on. So with the screw in this final hole here, this M3 is too close, so I can't get the nut in the right orientation. If the so it's asking me basically set the nuts in this orientation, which means this tail end on the M3 hits the first bolt hole of the linear rim. So I had to move that bolt back to the second hole. If I go like this, then I would have to turn both of them around, in which case this end of the M5 is now going to stick out proud out of the front, and I could run into issues rubbing against the uprights of the printer, Z-axis. So that's kind of what I was doing, was I just moved this bolt back one, which allows me to get the M3 into this hole here, right? Which then gives me the right clearance that I need. And so your belt, your belt go right into the groove slots across that top. You'll put in one of your tension plates that has the groove in it. Make sure it's in the right orientation. And then we're going to take one of these with the M5 nut in it make sure, because we know that M5 nut's going to roll out. We'll just slide it around. Now we need an M3 by 30 socket head cap screw in the back. Get everything lined up. Awful. M3 by 30. That says M5 by, or M3 by 30 and then M5 by 30. Feeling those right there. M5 by 50. That would be three. Hold that in place. 3 by 30. Five by 30. Okay. We have those tight. Belt's now clamped in there. So one belt down. Next we'll work on the further one back. We don't need this in stop. This in stop. Do this. Goes out of the way. The other side, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to undo this screw. Pull it out. Then we will push that T-nut into the next. Lined up. Drop that back in there. And we're going to take our next belt. Lay it in there where your teeth line up with the groove. Work it back and forth to make sure it seats. Line up your, get our M3 and M5 here first. They go with the full facing backside. Hey Zombie, how are you doing? like I said, normally these would already be in place and we wouldn't be messing with them. But because of the particular frames that we have, we do need to, because they slide a little bit. So we just need to make sure that they line up. That one did. Like I said, this is an issue of the B-stock frames where the channels are just a little bit too deep. For the nuts to actually spring lock into place, right? It's definitely doable. It's workable, and especially when you're getting a frame that most places sell for 150 bucks at $50. You know, I could live with the downside of having to finagle some rolling T-nuts. We put in that accent part that will clamp it. We get our little block here, and we make sure we get the M5 and M3 holes lined up, because we know that nut's going to fall out if we just flip it over. We got to be careful and make sure our fingers are wet. This whole time I'm trying to put some pressure down because otherwise the belt will lift this up. Put in our M5 by 30 bolt. That started on the T-nut. Let it just a tad bit. Put our M5 by 30 in the front hole. Make sure everything lines up. And then we will tighten that down. Why? It seems like these M5 by 30s, they're just bottoming out. I don't see. Yeah, the M3 by 30s. It's almost like I need M3 by 25s here. You know what? I've got some. I think that's what I'm going to do, is put it in there. Because I don't see a need for these to stand proud. Just feels awkward. I'm feeling them physically bottom out in the channel. Yeah, I started printing some Trident parts, zombie, and I had to switch back over to do some more parts for this particular build because the PIF parts just get you the functional pieces. They don't get you all of the pieces. All right, so interesting. So M3 by 25s don't seem to get down and into the T-nut. in the M3x30s. These are not M3x30s. Now I got it. Use the right screws, all works out. Apparently, Luke's having a hard time reading this morning. You know. Yeah, so I am printing all the parts right now on my V0. So there's still certain parts that I can't print just because they're too big for the V0. But we'll get there. I mean, most of those parts are non-functional. They'll be the like skirts and stuff like that. So those are things that I can get the printer up and running and get the extra parts printed off and then just add them afterwards. I am going to print all of the panel clips. Right now I'm doing parts to be able to set the electronics. Because not all of those, even though they were listed on the PIP, either misplaced them or I can't find them, like the DIN rail clips. So I'm printing those right now. Okay, so we've got 2 belts on there. And then we'll work on the belts on this side. Yeah, so I'll be working on printing that stuff throughout the day. We should be ready to start using that stuff come the next stream. If we go long enough that we can make it in the stream, then the DIN rails or the DIN clips will at least be done by then. So we will get as far as we can today. 3 in the front and 5 in the back. And also, always a lot easier when you actually put in the T-nuts first. So I'm going to move this front one. I think we're lined up. So belts. Lock stack. Down. yeah, the Voron or 0G has a page as well for like buys and sales and stuff like that. So you can look at the Voron, you can look at the 0G for parts, you can look at, I mean, because there's some parts that are relatively the same. Motors is a motor. The you know everybody's going to have control boards and stuff like that. You can try and pick up and relatively inexpensive. And so what I'm having to do here, Zombie, is got to put an M3 and an M5 nut in the back, and the way that everything lines up. If I have a screw in the last hole there, it blocks me getting that M3 in the right orientation. So I'm just moving the M ones into the second holes on all four corners. And that lets me get in the M3 in the right orientation in the M5. This then allows me to pop this in here. And I don't know if that's an issue with the rails in this kit being maybe a tad bit too long or what have you. I don't think it is. Everything's lined up nicely so far. Last belt. Line that up in the groove. Put the belt clamp on. Block on. 3x30. 3 or in 5x30. 10. And secure them down. And probably these rear ones are the most fiddly just because they're right next to those motors. So they seem to be kind of most fiddly to try and get in. All right. And got those in at all corners. The M5s are facing out on all corners and all four blocks. And now we're going to set it in the gantry. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move my Polymaker boxes. Set this down. Maybe before I have to pick them up with a bunch of peanut. We're going to set this off the table. this up, put it on the table. Front edge oriented towards me. Now we'll get our gantry back up in there. And I'm just going to try. And I'm just going to set it down in there for a second. Take a breather. Yeah. Look back over here and check what we got. Okay, so now there's a few of us here. My grandsons and I repair and gift 3D printers to science clubs and smart kids. Any ideas on where to get used / cheap hardware? RA rated Congrow, Micro Center, Craigslist, eBay. Are you doing like Ender 3s? Or are you just looking for parts and building 3D printers? Yeah, those boxes were just about the right height that I could get the motors up underneath and then install the motors. So that worked out really well. I mean, Polymaker boxes, there's 1,000 uses. In fact, I've got the camera stand for my Mercury 1 right now is spools that I've stacked up and just zip tied together to make a tower. And that's a stand that sits next to my Merc so that the camera's looking down through the top. If you're looking for Ender 3s, I've been buying them off of eBay for my Enderwire builds. And you may be missing a screw here or there, but if you look at the listings and you time your bids appropriately, then you can sneak in there and get a couple of them fairly cheap. So yeah, if you're looking at Enders, I buy from a guy called Tradeport Direct, and he's been really good to me as far as everything ships quick. So yeah, things ship quick. I haven't had any issues with any of the printers that I've gotten, and if I have had issues, he's really good at getting things taken care of. So I'm going to try something rather than hang this with zip ties. I believe that we can set these up and basically mount this directly on the trucks. Yeah, you use filament boxes for this as well. The thing with the Micro Center deal though is you've got to give your personal information to them to get it for $99, and I think it's only one. I don't think it's on as many as you can get. You think it's a girl discoveries thing? Well, that's the thing. You just need to find more girls and get them into 3D printing, and you'll keep them into 3D printing a lot longer. So yeah, I think that's what I'm going to try and do is see if I can't hang this, set this in here directly on the trucks. And using those stops should give me a little bit that I need of clearance. Just going to set that up there. We need to get our trucks on here. And the way that the trucks work is this spot here is where you put in your M5 bolt from the underneath. So this is the bottom. This is the top. And yes, it does have a rounded surface. It's like that for a reason. And it will allow, it will help with the gantry alignment. These go in with M3 by 20 socket head screws. So yeah, here folks, right? M3 by 20. Grabbing the wrong screws. And with anything that you do on these, as much as possible, you want to go just barely snug and then come back and do the second tightening, but you do it in a crossing pattern because you're trying not to warp or damage that carriage. Hey, what's everyone? How are you doing, sis? Yeah, I just make a burner email. Yeah, to me, and if you're dealing with repairs and stuff, I just, like I said, I tend to buy stuff off of eBay. And like I said, Tradeport 719 or something like that is the guy that I normally deal with when for the purchases because, or my auctions, because he's done right by me. When I got my Ender 5, the borosilicate glass was completely shattered in the box. I mean, when I put it together, I thought I got all the glass out of it. And then when I was modding it to the 0G mercury, I found more glass in it. So, but he made it right. He knocked $50 off and sent it back to me. And that let me get a PEI surface for it, which is still on it to this day. So I tend to like the PEI. The only thing I have that's got a glass bed right now is my Ender 3 Max because that one wasn't shattered in the box when I bought it from him. And I just haven't had a need to switch it out yet. So well, and if you're doing these in bulk and you can't afford to do it, you might reach out to a couple of those sellers that seem to sell a lot on eBay and say, hey, I'm looking for 10 Ender 3s. What kind of deal can you make me? Because they just want to sell. So, and they're buying them off the used market anyhow. So if they can get their hands on them and they can do a bulk sale to somebody, they may be willing to cut you a deal too. Yeah, if anybody has seen the videos, or was it Murph, and you saw V2 V24, which is the 24-inch by 24-inch, which is 600 by 600 millimeter Voron V2, basically. Um, I'd hate to see how much that PEI sheet cost. I would hate to see how much that sheet cost. Okay, so now I'm going to rotate this back around. Doggy, you don't need me. Feeling one of these is off. Off because I can't get it in there. We'll work that. It'll be okay. So we're using M5 by 40 socket head. '30s. Let's say M5 by 40 socket head cap screws, right? These would be. This one. Slide that up from underneath. If you're trying to get a specific size sheet shenanigans, reach out to Hector at Fabrico, and he may be able to hook you up. What this process is going to help do as well is help us get our rails and everything aligned, or gantry aligned, so to speak. It's got to be. Chat here. Yeah, it'll be a shiny penny, that's for sure. And you're probably going to have one made. What kind of printer is it for? Okay, so we've got our belts. We've got our gantry in place. Next up is belting. And we've already got all of our idlers nice and loose, so those will be good. Says these will go down and around the Z motors. Which ought to be fun because the only way to access the Z motors is from underneath. So what we'll do is just pull that all the way through. Let's set this down on its back. What we're doing is we're bringing the belt down underneath. Then we need to go back up through that pulley. Then we'll go up and around the idler. Oops. Actually, we go through this piece. Up and around. I'm just going to work on routing all four of these so it comes down on the Z pulley. And Western One, how's everything going today on the farm? Are all the animals doing good? Being nice to my little Mia? I'll kind of show you all the routing here once I get this done. Really not to be on camera. It's not with the camera and the angles I have set up. So what we have is the belt that comes from the inside, gets bent downward, goes down around the pulley, back up through the hole in the idler, over the top idler, and then will come down in the front. Yeah. That's why I said at 450, you're probably going to have to ask somebody for a custom. What I'm trying to do is I'm just going to pull this relatively tight, get it around that top idler, pull it down. You kind of see how it's routed. It goes through that clamp where we had them, goes down, around the pulley, back up, through the hole in the front idler or the rear motor mount, around the idler, back down. Then it'll come through the top. So what you do is you just get those loose and you feed the belt through. It's not loose enough, you just loosen off a little more. Get it nice and somewhat taut and tight. Probably won't be able to get it real tight, especially with a 9mm and a new. And you secure the belt clamp. In the excess belt, they tell you to kind of wrap up there. I may have a lot of extra here. I probably have a lot of extra here, so what I'll do is I'll trim it, put it up and out of the way. But we're going to do that to all four corners. So turn this around so you can better see what I'm doing. Yeah, it's 3D. It's a funny looking Merc 1. So we got a belt. I'm going to just try and pull it tight and down and around that Z motor. Work it up. Get my belt going through the belt clamp at the top. To get the belt coming through, start pulling that tight. Try to keep the slack out of it. Going to tighten this down. And once again, when I cut these, I cut them a little bit longer than the requested 1100 millimeters. So I know I have a little extra slack, so I'll cut that off, and then we'll Probably what I'll do is I'll loop it over like this, zip tie it, and then I'll cut the excess off right at the end of the carriage. So I'll have some excess like that. Work my way around to this side. And if you stick around a little bit, Scott, I'll show you the state of the Merc build. If I really wanted to be quasi-anal, I can actually go through and count the teeth exposed on the tail ends of each of these because they were all cut to the same length, and that way it'll tell me which ones need to be tightened more or loosened more. Oh, I bet, Scott. Now they were, Scott, if you can, they were going to release, and they meaning Sam Prentice was going to release the newest version of the Death Racer files sometime this weekend, right? That announcement was coming out, and then I know you've been working on the dragster. And once again, we're going to need some zip ties. Grab a couple of those. All I'm going to do is get them started. I'm going to go right around the I'm going to go around this outer belt. I'm just going to get it started. Okay. You're going to take and just do a little service loop here and get it looped up there. And we'll tighten this. It doesn't need to be a huge amount. You're just trying to basically hedge your bets if you have to take it apart and redo it down the road. You just tighten that up. And then I can clip this right at the clip so it won't rub against the panels or anything. And that gives you your little bit of a service loop. In fact, yeah, it shows you cutting it off right before the edge there so that it's out of the way. You don't want anything rubbing up against the pan. Nice. Yeah, I know you guys have been busy, so ahead and cut these off in a minute. And that's what you're going to look like. You're going to have a little bit of a service loop there with it clipped kind of right along the edge of those nuts so that they're out of the way. Like I said, you don't want anything over past this edge if you can afford it, because that's where your panels are going to go. And you're going to put, I think, a 3mm thick foam tape on those panels to keep it from rubbing, but hey, Royal Nomi, how are you doing, dear? Hope everything's going good. We've made some good progress so far this morning. We got our motors in since the last stream, so we were able to get those installed on the Z-axis and on our gantry, and that's allowed us to go in and start doing our belts. And so now we've got our Z belts installed, and all I'm doing is coming in here and providing basically like a little bit of a service loop on these belts. So if we ever have to take it apart or adjust it or do any work on it, we can really easily without having to cut new belts or get new belts, because we all tend to stock 6mm belts, but these Z-axes use 9mm belt. So yeah, we just got a little service loop set up there. I'm going to cut our zip ties. Cut the belts. And so once again, there we are. Here to print off. And once again, I've been working on printing the extra pieces that we're going to need when we get to the electronics, which should be coming up soon today. I think we'll get, well, let me take it. We won't get to the main electronics and the skirts or the panels and stuff, but we will be belting the gantry next. And then after that, we will start working on the tool head. Okay, so it's going to be a stealth burner with CW2. Will be we will be installing Voron tap on this, so that's in the future today as well. So